James Gunn followed Karl Urban on Instagram, so let's recklessly speculate about which DCU character Karl Urban could play. Now you may be saying, well, this is stupid. He's not even kind of cast in anything. He didn't even have a meeting with James Gunn as far as we know. James Gunn just follows him on Instagram. Maybe it's because of his wonderful posts. Perhaps. I don't know. I don't really use Instagram. Check on his Instagram presence, see if it's any good. Is he just a person who everybody should follow? Also, follow me on TikTok. I've been putting a lot of great stuff out on TikTok. So I'm looking at Karl Urban's Instagram now. I'm going to follow it just so I can have followed it. It's funny. A lot of his posts are just selfies of him in promotion of stuff that he's in. But on January 2nd, he just posted, "Oi, on the water in 26. First time in over a year. Find the time in 26. Happy New Year, y'all. Eagle and then King." I don't know what that means. So listen, there are worse follows out there. But look, this is not an emergency. Oh my God, we got to cast him in something. It's more of a thought that came to my mind and a lot of people's minds when they saw this news. It's like, oh, if Karl Urban was in the DCU, who could he play? And it's easy to not notice this because he plays a lot of supporting characters in a lot of these movies and shows, but Karl Urban has been in a lot of franchises. He played Aylmer in the Lord of the Rings movies. He played Scourge in Thor Ragnarok. He was Bones in those Star Trek movies. He was Judge Dredd in that one Judge Dredd movie everyone loves. He's obviously Billy Butcher on The Boys, and he is Johnny Cage in the new Mortal Kombat movie. And that's alongside a bunch of other work he's done, including Ghost Ship and some old stuff like Xena the Warrior Princess. But Karl Urban is a good friend to the franchise, so why not put him in the new DCU? And looking at that list, just thinking about Karl Urban, I really like him. I think he's a fun actor. So before we get to the characters, and I have maybe 7, but I'm going to say solid 5 characters that I think he could play in the new DCU. I just want to go over kind of what his characters usually are like. First of all, Karl Urban is currently 53 years old. He is from New Zealand, which, fun fact, is not the same as Australia. If you refer to someone from New Zealand as someone from Australia, they get very upset. New Zealand is also not England or America. And I would say Karl Urban's main 2 accents are American and British. That's where he tends to end up in his movies and shows. And I think his American accent, while not perfect, isn't bad. It's a very specific, gruff accent. You hear this in Star Trek, Dredd, and Mortal Kombat. But that's where the characters he tends to play are from. I would say his characters are known for being somewhat loud and outspoken. That's a quality I would mainly ascribe to Billy Butcher, Bones, and Johnny Cage. Obviously, Billy Butcher talks and talks and talks and curses constantly, whereas Bones is not as much of a chatterbox, but he is one to be critical, especially of Kirk, in those movies at least. And Johnny Cage is a movie star who, it seems like in these Mortal Kombat movies, is past his prime, but either way, Johnny Cage traditionally thinks he's cool. He's one of those characters. I would say tends to work well in action movies and franchises. Although Star Trek, he's not doing very much action in that. Thor, he's not doing very much action in that. And then, let's say 2 other things about him. One, he's charming. I think a lot of the times his characters are charismatic. Even Billy Butcher, who's clearly a jerk, is someone you'd like to listen to. He is also sometimes a leader, but also sometimes a follower. He's frequently a team player. I would say that is true of almost all of his roles, besides Dredd, but all those other big ones: Mortal Kombat, Star Trek, Thor, The Boys, Lord of the Rings. I think he works well as an ensemble player because he can play a very memorable and specific character, give them a lot of personality without necessarily taking up all the space. So, okay, that's Karl Urban for you. Like I said, you've seen him in something. You know his deal. He loves boats. According to his Instagram, he likes going onto the water, so that's fun. Maybe he's Aquaman, probably not. But okay, so James Gunn follows him on Instagram. They, I don't believe, have worked together before, so that's not nothing. Sometimes this is how these things start, and James Gunn is clearly online enough to know that just following a random actor out of nowhere who you're not currently working with is going to set up perhaps a little bit of buzz. Oh, is he in this? Is he in that? I'm not saying he's doing it to bait all the YouTubers. I'm just saying it makes me think that maybe there's something here. So I've got 8 characters here. We're going to go over them in terms of how much I like them and also how likely I think they are to appear in the future. So the last ones we'll talk about are ones that are A, the most fun picks for him, and B, characters I would not be surprised to see in the near future. But because of how open-ended the DCU is right now, I don't think there's very many characters that I'd be well, they're not going to put him in something, especially because of how James Gunn likes to play this, where he'll take a character who you've only heard of from a couple of books or maybe an episode of the animated series and elevate them into this bigger player. But all right, let's talk about the one role I don't like him for. This is number 8, is Batman. So first of all, I think he's too old. I think the Batman we get will be in his 40s, maybe late 30s. But yeah, 50 just seems too old. Also, and I feel a little bad saying this, but I also think this is something you can't really ignore. I don't think he's got the chin for Batman. Batman's got a very specific face with the cowl and all that. And I don't know, he's got a kind of a pointy chin. This isn't the main reason I don't think this is what he's going to do, but I can't ignore it. So now, a couple that I don't love, but I'm like, oh, that could happen. I've heard people pitch him as Zod, especially because he kind of looks like the Zod from the comics, but like the more recent Zod. I think this is possible. My big reason against this is just we already did General Zod, not obviously in this universe, but like Michael Shannon, especially as recently as the Flash movie, played a very definitive and memorable General Zod. That's to say nothing of the Terrence Stamp version, but like, I think James Gunn seems interested in doing new things, exploring new characters, or maybe characters that have been done before, but haven't been done justice. And like, I don't think General Zod is in that space. Also, Zod would be complicated because of all the weird Kryptonian conquering. Like, if Jor-El thought Kal-El should go to a planet and kind of take over because he's obviously the strongest, then like, what's the difference between him and Zod? The other character I don't love him as, but I think is kind of interesting, is Captain Boomerang, because like, A, I love Captain Boomerang. B, he's from Australia, which like I said is not New Zealand, but is kind of close. You know, he could definitely pull off a good accent. And forget about the Australianness of Captain Boomerang. He's just kind of a ham, which is something that I do think Karl Urban can do pretty well. Like Scourge from Thor, right? He can be silly, he can be over the top. The reason I don't think we'll do him is because of the weird continuity between the Suicide Squad and all the rest of these movies. I feel like the Suicide Squad might as well be canon, which means I don't think we're going to introduce another Captain Boomerang, considering the Captain Boomerang in that movie, who was Digger Harkness, is dead. You could make this a different one, but like, I don't know. I don't think there's a huge appetite for that. Also, he's traditionally a Flash villain, and I don't think we're going to get too much Flash stuff in the near future. So now we got those out of the way, here are the 5 that I think are kind of realistic. And we'll start with the one I like the least, and this is Constantine. So I not dislike the character. I like the character Constantine, fine. But I think the thing that I've heard people saying is like, oh, he'd be such a good Constantine. Imagine he's like Billy Butcher. He curses, he smokes, he's surly, he's got like a trench coat on. And it's like, yeah, I know. We watched that show. The voice is that. So I'm not saying like he can't do that, but also like, what's the fun of that? We already have it. I think he has enough range. We can do something kind of weird. Also, I think there's a lot of other actors that I think might be more interesting Constantines. Like my favorite is like Dan Stevens, but there's plenty of actors out there. British, depends on the age you want, like you can find one. Also, like he feels kind of old for Constantine. I feel like we're going to want a younger Constantine so he can have a relationship with Zatanna that's less creepy. I think we'll also get a youngish Zatanna. This is based off nothing. So like I understand why people think Constantine, but just I don't feel it. Next, this is one that I think could work. I think it's unlikely for a different reason. Jack Hawksmoor, aka the God of Cities. This is a member of the Authority. He's eventually the leader of the Authority, and he does have a lot of Karl Urbanness to him. It is very easy to see parallels between Billy Butcher and Jack Hawksmoor, and it's not just that he wears a trench coat and curses a lot. It's that he's tough. He's a leader who makes compromises, who does the dirty work, right? That is Jack Hawksmoor. He kind of looks like him too. I'm not sure where Jack Hawksmoor is supposed to be from. I remember I tried to figure this out when I made my video fancasting the Authority, but it's like kind of unclear. My main knock against this one is I just don't think we're going to do that Authority movie. I would like it. I think it could be interesting. I didn't have very strong feelings about the Engineer, but if you brought in Jenny Sparks and some of the other more exciting members of the team and threw Karl Urban there, you could make a movie that's fun, but it does not seem like a priority. I feel like the last time I heard James Gunn talk about this was at like maybe San Diego Comic-Con, and someone asked him a question about it and he kind of giggled. So that kind of makes me think they're not doing it. I feel like for James Gunn, if he announces a project, I take it seriously, unless it's from that first video when he announced 10 projects, because that kind of felt like Warner Brothers was like, hey, get out there and tell us 10 projects either you know you're going to do, like Superman, Creature Pandos, or ones you think you would like to do, and we'll see if we can get those working. And the Authority feels like he was like, oh, that'd be interesting, but then it just kind of seemed to have fizzled out. Okay, so the 3 I like. Now we're the fun part. First one, Vandal Savage, I think is a really interesting character. So for people that don't know, Vandal Savage is a caveman who is immortal. He touched a magic meteor or something that gave him immortality. And he used that immortality, and I also believe the intelligence that came with exposure to the meteor, to take over pretty much everything. And like he was a lot of the conquerors in ancient history. He's one of those characters who will introduce himself as saying like, I've gone by many names, Attila the Hun, Alexander the Great. You know, he's one of those. But he's also a tough guy, because he's supposed to be a caveman. So he's physically imposing. B, he's older. He's supposed to look like he's around the block. And then C, Vandal Savage just feels like, to me, he's kind of supposed to be sort of a bastard. Like, obviously he's been written a lot of different ways, but the Vandal Savage I like takes himself very seriously and kind of thinks everybody else is an idiot. It's a little bit like Lex Luthor, but like without the ego. Even though he clearly has an ego, he was at least able to stay out of the public eye and kind of do things behind the scenes for a while. You know, do I think we'll see Vandal Savage in something in the future? Yeah, I kind of do. He's a big bad in DC Comics that just hasn't really done anything outside of the Legends of Tomorrow show and, you know, some of the animated material. Like, he's never been in any of the live action movies as far as I can remember. And there was an animated movie where he brought together the Legion of Doom, and I think if Lex doesn't want to do that, Vandal Savage could do that. That could be a fun movie in the future. Okay, so now this is second place. This runner-up is Deathstroke, the Terminator, Slade Wilson. I think part of why this works so well for me is because I really liked the Deathstroke from Arrow. It was played by Manu Bennett, who kind of looks like Karl Urban, but also the same way that Vandal Savage is supposed to be kind of a bastard. Slade is way more than that. He's got the ego of Johnny Cage, the vindictiveness of Billy Butcher, and like he strikes fear into your heart the same way that Judge Dredd does. Everybody probably knows Slade. If you haven't read the comics, you probably know him from Teen Titans or any of the Titans related material, because he is more or less that team's main villain. I would say like the most influential Teen Titans story is the Judas Contract, which he plays a big role in. He's a mercenary. He's got healing powers. He's another character that's been around for a while. So like, you do want an actor who is kind of older for this role. He's an excellent fighter, so he's got to be in conceivably pretty good shape. Joe Manganiello is going to play this character in the DCEU, and like, I don't think he's exactly the same kind of guy as Karl Urban, but I do think Karl Urban could do this. I also think a lot of this role is behind a mask, because obviously Slade has his scary kind of half orange, half black mask, and I think Karl Urban just has a cool voice. He can do a lot with his voice. Obviously, Judge Dredd, even though he doesn't speak very much in that movie, Karl Urban's able to bring a lot of personality to that role. So that's why I think Karl Urban would be a good Deathstroke. I think Deathstroke would make sense to put in one of these pretty soon because A, they're working on a Teen Titans movie or something. I don't really know where that is right now, but it's something that has at least been reported on, kind of. B, this is a character that outside of that one post-credit scene in the Justice League movie has not been in a movie, I don't think, outside, I guess, maybe like the Teen Titans Go to the Movies, the bad guy of that. But like in the non-post-credits parts of a live-action DC movie, we haven't seen him yet, and he would be fun. My one, like, knock against him is I feel like he kind of looks like Bloodsport. They have similar, like, outfits and similar weapons. Deathstroke traditionally has a sword. Bloodsport has his little collapsible sword. He has all of his guns. But the thing that really interested me about Deathstroke, because I wasn't sold on this, when I made a tweet about this, I kind of threw him out there, mostly with the knowledge that, like, the one from Arrow kind of looks like him, and, like, he was good, so Karl Urban could do that. But then, after we learned that Maxima was getting introduced in Man of Tomorrow, I went and read Battle in the Sky, which is a Superman story where Brainiac and Maxima go to Earth to try to destroy the planet and kill Superman. Superman has to assemble a group of heroes and some villains to go and fight Brainiac. So, like, I'm not saying I think this movie is exactly that, but it does feel like a lot of the pieces are starting to come together. One of the first people, before many other like high-profile DC superheroes, that Superman recruits to go with him to fight Brainiac and Maxima and Matrix, which if you don't know who that character is way too complicated right now, but is Deathstroke. Superman just goes, hey, Deathstroke, you're good at organizing teams, like you're kind of a good field general. I need you to help me create this like ultimate strike force to go fight Brainiac. So even though like, I don't know if he fights Brainiac, like I don't think Deathstroke and Brainiac have some sort of like, you know, rivalry throughout the ages. So even though he doesn't have a connection to that, he's not traditionally a superhero, he's not in the Justice League or anything like that, Superman still goes his character first and is like, hey, you gotta help me out here. So if James Gunn was looking at that comic and going, who should I throw in here? Deathstroke makes a lot of sense. We've heard that the rest of the cast of Man of Tomorrow is probably mostly going to be characters from other things, except there's apparently one other role that is yet to be cast. I'm not sure if that includes Maxima, but I think it doesn't. I think there's like one other good guy that has not been cast, even though he's not a good guy. Could be Deathstroke. But okay, so this is my number one. If I had to pick, if I could bet on it, this would be where I put my, I'm not saying bet. Don't bet. Betting's bad. I mean, it's not bad. And well, it's bad. It's addictive, and in almost every situation, you lose money. Casinos make money. So like, it's bad, and it's way too easy. I've talked about this before. It really bugs me watching TV, like football or whatever, and you see constant ads for gambling, and it's just like, man, people were not meant to have casinos in their phone. Also, like, it doesn't look like fun. I understand at least the appeal of like the ones where Kevin Hart is like, I'm playing fantasy football for money. But like the one where it's Post Malone on his tour bus and he's like, I'm doing virtual casino on my phone. It's like, that's sad. That's a very sad thing. But anyway, don't, so try not to gamble, people. And stay, Polymarket's weird. It's weird for a bunch of other reasons. The whole thing's weird. But if I had to pick a character that was my favorite for a bunch of reasons, it's actually kind of what my tweet was getting at. Because I tweeted after I saw this news, I said, well, I think he'd be a good Deathstroke or a good Vandal Savage, but kind of knowing my luck, it's probably going to end up being Rick Flag's cousin or something. Because, this is how this tends to go, it seems like. And even not just for DC stuff, but, you do fan casting a lot of time, you go, oh, he's be perfect for this. And then it turns out it's a character that was never in the comics before, or someone who's not that exciting, but, could be a good role. Anyway, so I joked that it might be another Rick Flag relative. And partially that's because he kind of looks like Frank Grillo, too. Right? They're not dissimilar looking guys. Also, I never mentioned this before. My cat Mortimer, I think you've seen him in the background, but he's on my lap right now because he loves Billy Butcher, because Billy Butcher loves his dog. But the last thing I think I was kind of making fun of, is he's going to get some kind of generic army man character or something. Maybe a general or something that Lex Luthor will have to talk to in a couple of scenes, and it won't be that interesting. Then I started looking at other characters Karl Urban has played, and it turns out he actually has played a DC character, at least one, maybe even more than one. But the one that he has played that I have seen, it's not like a movie length performance, but Karl Urban actually did the voice of another character who we have heard a lot about in the run up to the DCU, Sergeant Rock. So here is very simply the story of Sergeant Rock. All you need to know is he's a pretty generic army character. He led a squad, I guess, called Easy Company with a bunch of kind of memorable guys like Bulldozer and Jackhammer or whatever. That now it kind of sounds like they're all Transformers, but it was just a pretty standard army comic. Sergeant Rock's adventures traditionally took place in World War II. Apparently, he seemed to be dead, but was not dead, and I don't know, stuck around somehow. But when he seemed to be dead, apparently he was killed by the last bullet that was shot on the last day of World War II. So right as World War II ended, Sergeant Rock died. But Sergeant Rock is the Billy Butcher of Easy Company. He's a tough guy with a heart of gold who leads a squad of kind of misfits. But okay, so that's Sergeant Rock. Karl Urban did the voice for Sergeant Rock in a Sergeant Rock and the Creature Commandos short from a more generic version of the Creature Commandos before the new DCU versions. So he did that voice. And Sergeant Rock, clearly, because a lot of you probably haven't even heard of him before, not an A-lister. He's not a character like Batman, who you're oh, they're going to make a Sergeant Rock movie pretty soon, otherwise fans are going to be mad. He's a guy who I'd be surprised if anybody wanted to make a movie about. And yet, for whatever reason, Luca Guadagnino, one of the most sought-after directors in Hollywood right now, was at one point attached to direct a Sergeant Rock movie, and he seemed into it. There were a couple of rumors about who was cast in this movie. Originally, I believe the two actors that came up were Daniel Craig and Colin Farrell. Both of them eventually left, and then the project kind of got scrapped, and they haven't really been able to do anything with it since then. But for whatever reason, this is something that someone at DC wants to do. But you may say, Sergeant Rock, Easy Company, that sounds kind of familiar. Yeah, it should, because he showed up in the James Gunn version of Creature Commandos. We learned that G.I. Robot's backstory involved being part of Easy Company. G.I. Robot was the Tin Man, and the person leading this group was Sergeant Rock. Now, in this, he was voiced by a different actor, but I don't think anybody would care. But it seems like, for whatever reason, James Gunn kind of wants to explore this side of the DCU, the Sergeant Rock side. He wants this kind of Howling Commandos Captain America period piece, maybe? I don't know. And then I'm wait a second. What if he's related to Rick Flag? What if this is Rick Flag's grandfather? The name's different. Maybe Sergeant Rock is an alias or something, or Flag is a name they picked up after the war or whatever. But I would not be surprised if they connect Sergeant Rock to the current Peacemaker and Superman characters by having him be related to Rick Flag Sr. Also, those two actors look pretty similar, even though obviously they're the same age in real life, but you would have flashbacks. Or Sergeant Rock would travel to the future somehow, maybe. The other thing that's interesting about Sergeant Rock is from just kind of looking him up, he had adventures on a location known as Dinosaur Island, which, if you know what the Savage Land is in Marvel Comics, Dinosaur Island is that, but in DC Comics. It doesn't feel like it comes up as much as the Savage Land comes up, but it's an island populated by dinosaurs, I believe in the South Pacific or something like that. It's an island that time forgot, and sometimes Easy Company has to go there to maybe chase some Nazi or something who's doing experiments or whatever weird stuff there. So right off the bat, you can kind of see a pitch for a movie forming where it's Sergeant Rock on Dinosaur Island. That could be fun. And that could be something new. It's army men versus dinosaurs. Dinosaur movies make money. I don't understand why. I mean, I kind of understand why they're cool, but that might be a really good hook to get people interested in this movie. But then when I was reading about this, I was wait a second, that's not Dinosaur Island. Dinosaur Island is a different thing from the New Frontier comic. And then I realized that in the New Frontier comic, Dinosaur Island is something called the Center, and it is some sort of evil living organism that, upset with all the nuclear testing and all the wars that man is doing. First of all, it does have a lot of monsters and dinosaurs on it, but it kind of goes to war to try to wipe out humanity, which like leads to the formation of this Justice League. But there have been rumors that the Center and like a New Frontier kind of storyline is going to be something that we see in new DCU. Like, this has been a rumor that has been spreading for a while. Now, obviously not all rumors are true, but this feels like it comes out of nowhere if it's not. Also, Peacemaker is currently in some sort of green area, perhaps an island, we don't know, surrounded by monsters. So here's how this could work. I need a corkboard with string for this, honestly. Peacemaker could find out that this sanctuary area, this jail for superhumans, is actually the Dinosaur Island or the Center, whatever you want to call it. And maybe Sergeant Rock is living there. And then maybe it's like, oh, time is weird here. So like, I haven't aged really, but like I've grown up, but that's why there's still dinosaurs. And then what Rick Flag Sr. does with putting all of the supervillains onto this Dinosaur Island, that angers the Center and that causes it to lash out and attack all the heroes. Then you've got this villain, Rick Flag Sr., who's maybe now going to be set against his father or grandfather, whatever we make this character, Sergeant Rock, who could be part of like a platoon that discovered Dinosaur Island. It feels very much like Kong Skull Island. It's a similar kind of thing where you're mixing like monsters and like, oh, this was a World War II guy that's stuck here. It's like, it doesn't exactly have to be this movie, but like, man, you can see it, right? Like that, this could all come together. And like with Mike Flanagan, you know, Flanagan was going to do Clayface movie, he wrote the Clayface movie, and then he dropped out, but they kept his script, but then maybe they rewrote his script, and then they have a new director. So like, maybe Sergeant Rock is in that stage where Luca Guadagnino did a lot of great work on it, but like, then he was like, yeah, I can't really give this my full time and attention. So they just find another director and find another writer and have them work with that original script and turn it into this movie. Like, I don't know, it just feels like this could be it. And it doesn't have to be, and I won't be upset if he's not in these, unless he wants to be, and then he should. But like, man, I don't know. I think if they wanted to resurrect this Sergeant Rock movie, connect it to Peacemaker, connect it to Superman, connect it to potentially the Justice League story they might want to tell, it would be very easy, and all you would need is a Sergeant Rock movie that kind of explains what Dinosaur Island is, and also maybe sets up certain things with Rick Flag Sr., and that could star Karl Urban, and that could feature G.I. Robot, and maybe some other human members of Easy Company. And this movie could play kind of like Captain America the First Avenger. Screw it, get Joe Johnson, just call him. He can direct it, totally doable. So that's why it's so interesting to me, because originally I went into this going, Deathstroke, Vandal Savage, those are two easy ones. You know, Jack Hawksmore's interesting, but it's probably not what it'll be. And the more I looked into it, the more it feels like Sergeant Rock fits a lot of these pieces together, and like Karl Urban could do it. I don't know. We'll see. You know, we'll find out. I hope he's not busy. I mean, I hope Mortal Kombat goes well. Probably not gonna see him in like Avengers Doomsday is Scourge, so you know, at least he's free from those. And like, I liked him enough in that movie, but they kind of wasted him. That's Disney though, they're not perfect, obviously. Even since their inception, they've had all kinds of weird flops, and like, I don't know, if you want to see a video about that, you should check out this video by Lindsay Ellis called Let's Compare and Contrast Disney's Flop Eras, talking about this enormous company, Disney, with all of this history and the ups and downs that comes with. In the video, Lindsay looks at the downs mostly, because we remember the ups from Disney, like the golden age flying high, like hit after hit after hit. But every so often, things fall apart and Disney needs to reset. So in this video, Lindsay looks at how all those different periods of Disney failure came to pass. And like, if we've learned anything, it just goes to show you, any movie can be a success and any movie can be a failure. It's super funny, and you can watch it exclusively on this video's sponsor, Nebula. You guys have heard me talk about Nebula before. It is a subscription streaming service that I helped to create. A bunch of us video essayists, and I don't like call myself a content creator, but like content creators got together and we were like, hey, these platforms that we have to work with, they're great, but they have some problems. And the big one is we wanted to just make great videos, give them to you guys. We wanted to make a nice, clean, well-organized place where you can go to watch all of our videos. They all go up early, so every Nando V Movies video and Nando Cut video go up early. They're all ad-free. You can download them to your phone, which is a feature I don't hear nearly enough people talking about, but is incredibly useful. Like, if you don't want to have to eat up all your data or deal with the Wi-Fi at the gym or something, download some videos. You'll have them with you. Also, this is a thing that wasn't a concern when we started Nebula, but has become a concern when talking about the other platforms is, I don't know about you, but when I jump onto other platforms, I am flooded with AI. We were talking about it just now in regards to the Thor trailer. Like, it is everywhere, and it makes finding information, especially useful information, really, really difficult, because you don't know if it is being made by a person, and if it's not being made by a person, A, you don't want to support it because AI is bad, but B, like, if you're trying to learn something or get some information, AI just makes stuff up. So like, I have gone to so many videos trying to learn things about comic book characters that I kind of know some stuff about, but don't know everything about. Like, oh, I want to get brought up to speed on like the full story of Cable or something like that. And just immediately you hear something, you're like, that's not true. Oh, this is AI. Okay. Yeah. Ignore that. The videos on Nebula are all made by real people, and that didn't used to have to be a selling point, but now I think it might be the best selling point. There's also all kinds of cool videos you can only find on Nebula. Like Lindsay makes videos almost exclusively for Nebula. One of her most recent videos was about Bluey adults, and the one after that was about dash cam footage, so it really covers a pretty wide spectrum of things. Then you've got short films like Patrick Williams' Dinner Plan, or series like Maggie Mae Fish's Amy's Dead End Dreamhouse. And you have what we haven't like fully announced, but will be coming out sometime next year, our show Subliminal. It's our first like dramatic series. I wrote an episode. I think it's pretty good. I've seen parts of it now because it's like coming together and been edited and all that, and like it looks great. I can't wait for you guys to see it. If you want to support us, give us more opportunities to do cool stuff like that, and you want to see our videos early, ad-free, download them and see other creators on Nebula, because all of your favorite creators and your next few favorite creators are on Nebula right now. Like, there's something for everybody. And a yearly subscription to Nebula is $60 for a whole year. That is $5 a month. But if you go to go.nebula.tv/thenandocut, or the link in the description, or you use the QR code, you can get a year of Nebula for just $30. That is $2.50 a month. It is an incredible deal. And if you want to check Nebula out on your own, sign up for a 3-day trial. I guarantee you will find something you like. Again, that is go.nebula.tv/thenandocut.